Hello to all my haunt friends out there. I am Scare Rookie and welcome to another Scare Rookie adventure. Today we're going to take a look at one of the most prolific horror movies of all time and the very important role that Milwaukee served in the inspiration of this movie. Now, if you're new to the group, I want to wish you a very warm welcome. I'm so glad to have you. And every Tuesday I try to do a video that covers all things paranormal. Anything in the horror genre, movies, books, urban legends, haunted locations, it doesn't matter. If it has anything to do with the horror genre, we take a look at it. The purpose is to hopefully cover some stories, review some information that maybe inspires a great idea that will help you improve your yard haunt. Maybe you change your theme, your set, maybe you come up with a new monster, whatever it may be. If anything we cover inspires you to do something different or improves you over your yard hunt, that is the end goal. So join me as we take a look at this amazing movie in today's discussion topic Tuesday. I am Scare Rookie. This is the International Yard Hunters Association, and today is discussion topic Tuesday. Yeah! Now guys, as we're making our way to our location, I just want to talk a little bit about this movie, to kind of set the stage. Now this particular movie came out in 1973. It was released by Warner Brothers. When this movie hit the scene, it was a shocking movie to people. It shocked the world, literally. There were lines that were wrapped around blocks adjacent to the theater of people trying to get in. And I truly believe personally that this movie set the standard. It raised the bar for the scare factor in movies. To this day, this particular movie is considered by many experts to be the scariest movie ever made. Once this movie came out, it set records in sales and the number of people that threw up all over themselves or ran out of the theater. That's how amazing this movie was. And I can't wait to do a deeper dive into this and give a little bit more information about what I'm talking about. Now, the movie that I'm talking about, of course, is none other than the legendary The Exorcist. Released in 1973, it was produced by William Friedrichs. It was a movie that was an adaptation of a screenplay that was written by William Blatty. And the screenplay was an adaptation of a book written by William Blatty that was released as a bestseller in 1971. Now, to many movie historians and horror movie aficionados and just general fans, Exorcism to this day is still considered one of, if not the most terrifying movie that's ever been produced. Now, the movie is about a 13-year-old girl who becomes possessed by demons. And the mother obviously takes steps to try to help her child, to the point that she gets approval for priests to help with an exorcism. 2 priests attempt to excise the demons from this little girl, and the movie's about the process of the exorcism. And it's horrific. Little spoiler alert, but the movie's been out since 1973, so I think it's safe to talk about. I mean, calm down, relax. I'm not going to ruin it by sharing a little bit here. It's all right. There's parts of the movie that are just absolutely vile. The girl projects a large amount, like a flow of vomit onto the priest, this vile, green, putrid vomit. Her head spins 360 around her neck. The makeup, the special effects of her possessed body is insanely good. The bed jumps up and down. The girl levitates. It's terrifying. Absolutely a terrifying movie. Do I think it's one of the scariest movies of all time? Personally, I would say yes. I would. Do I have any evidence to back that up? Yeah, I think so. I think so. Just simply go to YouTube and Google interviews with fans of the movie Exorcist, or fans pass out, or fans terrified watching the movie Exorcist. You'll find them. But the news of this movie's success and how terrifying, horrific it was spread across televisions all across the world. There are news anchors that are standing outside the movie theater and they're interviewing people who ran out of the movie theaters. And that's not hyperbole. They literally ran out of the theaters, terrified. And you can tell it's genuine when they're asking them, hey, why aren't you watching the movie? Why did you run out? Their voices are shaking. Their hands are shaking. Shortness of breath. They're breathing heavy. You can tell their heart is just pounding a mile a minute. These people are genuinely terrified. There were people inside the theaters that would faint of being scared, so much, being frightened so much they would just faint. Others would vomit at the vileness of the things that they were seeing in the movie. It was an unbelievably terrifying movie when it came out. Now, I remember talking to my mother about this movie years ago. She actually saw the movie when it came out in theaters. And even to this day, she will firmly tell you that this was and is the most terrifying movie she has ever seen in her life. This movie was an instant success. At its day, at its time, during its day, when it was released, it was the highest grossing horror movie in the history of movies, by a lot. And it maintained that title all the way up until I think it was the release of Stephen King's It outdid it at that point. But to this day, it's still one of the highest grossing horror movies of all time. It's also one of the most successful movies that was recognized by the Academy. The Exorcist was the first horror movie in history to ever be nominated for an Academy Award. In fact, it was nominated for 9 different Academy Awards, and it won 2 of them. One for Best Screenplay and one for Best Sound. And there's no denying that. Just as iconic as the movie score from Halloween, or maybe the movie score from Nightmare on Elm Street, because as soon as you hear them, you instantly relate them to the movies. But The Exorcist is no different. As soon as you hear that movie score, you know it's from The Exorcist. I've watched that movie many times, and even to this day, there's something unsettling about this movie. It feels evil, which is incredible that they were able to produce a movie that could translate that to its fans. It's incredible. Now, there is a lot of legend, a lot of rumor, a lot of people believe this movie was actually cursed at the time of the making of the movie. For whatever reason, this movie had an unbelievable amount of weird, unexplained accidents. Equipment would just go missing, would break down, brand new. Weird things would happen, weird little accidents. There were all kinds of weird, unexplained injuries to the crew and staff. There were even deaths associated to the making of this film. It took them 2 times longer to make this movie and 3 times the budget to complete this movie because of all of these weird, in many cases unexplainable accidents, injuries, and deaths. And many people that were on the movie set helping make this movie, a lot of people were very unsettled making this movie. They did feel like this movie was cursed. That's amazing, don't you think? It's absolutely crazy. But what's even crazier is that William Blatty's book, The Exorcist, was inspired by a journal that was detailing an actual exorcism. And that is why we do these videos. If you take a look at a lot of movies or a lot of books, even urban legends, if you do a deep dive like we do here on Discussion Topic Tuesday, you find that a lot of times they were inspired from actual events. And when you do a deeper dive into the actual events, I often find that the real life events were far more terrifying than the movies or the books, just for the fact that it really happened. So what am I talking about? What exorcism am I talking about? Now, the exorcism that I'm referring to took place in 1949 in St. Louis, Missouri. A young 13-year-old boy by the name of Roland Doe. Normal 13-year-old kid. Nothing exceptional about him. Now, he had a very close relationship with his aunt. He used to spend a lot of time with her. Now, his aunt was into spiritualism and practicing spiritualism. And as he would spend hours and stuff visiting with her, she would teach him all about the different, methods and, background and everything around spiritualism. And part of that was showing him how to use a Ouija board. And as he would visit her, there were oftentimes they would spend time using a Ouija board. Now, at some point in their relationship, it came to an abrupt end when his aunt died, and it really struck Roland really, really hard. He was severely depressed, and he missed her desperately. So, on his own, he took a Ouija board and used it in an attempt to make contact with his aunt because he missed her so much. Now, shortly after him going through his sessions with a Ouija board, strange things started happening in his room. weird little things like the sound of water dripping. It kind of has that echoey sound, you know, you hear in the movies of water dripping and landing on the floor into a puddle of water. But there was nothing found. There were no water leaks. There was nothing that they could find that would create the dripping water sound. The boy complained to his mother that he was having a hard time sleeping because he would constantly hear footsteps walking back and forth in his room. As time progressed, things started getting a little more serious. There were times he'd wake up in the morning and his sheets on his bed were shredded, ripped apart, scratched. And then eventually, the abuse started happening to him. He would wake up and have scratches all over his body. Now, his mother obviously became concerned, and so she reached out to see what she could do to try to help him. So they contacted their local priest, and he suggested they try to baptize Roland. But when they tried to baptize Roland, he broke out into a psychotic rage. He had unbelievable strength. They couldn't restrain him, and he absolutely refused to be baptized. From there, the mother went to seek psychiatric help, thinking maybe there was something going on with her son mentally or emotionally that was causing this breakdown. But after a thorough examination, and frankly, the doctors being absolutely weirded out by Roland, by how he was acting very strange. He would talk in different voices, and he would know things about these doctors that a 13-year-old boy that they'd never met before in their life would possibly know. They suggested that possibly he might need spiritual help, but they didn't have any way of helping him. So the mother reaches out to the priest once again, and through the process, they got approval through the Catholic Church to ordain or to commission, I should say, an exorcism on this young boy. Now, there were 3 priests who participated in this exorcism overall. Initially, it was 2. It was Raymond Bishop and William Bowden. Now, when they were trying their exorcism, when it was just the 2 of them, they witnessed crazy things, like they witnessed these scratches on the boy's body. They witnessed the boy levitate in the air, the bed shaking, the boy peeing all over himself, like purposely. The boy speaking in weird ancient languages, like ancient Hebrew, ancient Greek, even Sumerian. Things he would possibly know. Ancient languages. And he would speak in voices that were obviously not his. They were too deep, too masculine, too unnatural to be him. So the priest knew without a shadow of a doubt that he was possessed. Exorcisms are not what people think they are. You know, they're not just some priest walks into a shady, dark, creepy bedroom on a stormy night and perform an exorcism. You would never do that in reality. It would put you at too great a risk. You would always do it in larger parties. It would be done almost as a scientific way of documenting and recording the entire session. There would be help there, multiple priests and assistants, and you would absolutely not do it in the domain of these demons. You would take them to a holy place, a place of sanctuary, of sanctified land, holy land, a church, a sanctified hospital, something of that nature. And that's what happened with Roland. He was taken firstly to Georgetown University Hospital. That's a Jesuit college, so sanctified ground. And they had a normal, a level of rites that were performed as part of the exorcism at Georgetown. At one of these situations, one time, just to kind of show you the unbelievable strength that Roland had, supernatural strength, he was able to take his hand and jab it down into the mattress and yank out a spring from the box spring and use it to stab Raymond Bishop. And he cut him from his elbow to his wrist with this. It took multiple people in the hospital to hold this boy down, to restrain him. 4, 5, and 6 adults. He's a 13-year-old boy. That's supernatural strength. At some point, Father Raymond, brought in additional help. So they brought in another priest. His name was Walter Halloran. He was a 26-year-old priest. I believe it was his first exorcism. I don't remember, so don't quote me on that, but he was relatively young. But he brought him in as an extra pair of hands to help out because this was just such an incredible challenge. At one point during one of the exorcisms, Halloran got his nose broken by Roland. So you can imagine that the exorcisms that were being performed, there wasn't just one. It's not like the movies where they go in and it's just like one exorcism and maybe it takes hours and then they free them. Oftentimes it takes many exorcisms to excise the demons out of a person who is possessed. Eventually, after many different exorcisms and after taking him to Georgetown University, there was another place where they took him to Alexian Brothers Hospital, another Jesuit hospital, to perform these rites. Eventually, though, they were able to excise the demons from this young man, and Roland went on to live a happy, normal life. It's a pretty incredible story. The point of it is that as they were doing all of these steps, all of these rites to excise the demons, it was all being recorded in this journal. Every day that they did it, all the details of what happened, who did what, the dates, the time, everything. Very methodically recorded. And it was the journal that was recorded by, well, there was actually several, but there was a journal recorded by Raymond Bishop. There was a diary that was recorded by Walter Halloran that detailed the exorcisms of Roland. And it was this information that was used by William Blatty to create the screenplay for The Exorcist. Well, his book originally, The Exorcist, and then eventually the screenplay that led to the movie. Now, I told you that Milwaukee had a very interesting tie to the creation of the movie The Exorcist. And that's what I'm going to show you next. Now, during the intro, I had told you that I was going to reveal to you the relationship that Milwaukee had to the inspiration of the movie The Exorcist. As you can see, and I'm sure you've noticed, I've been spending my time in a cemetery. I am visiting Calvary Cemetery here in Wauwatosa, Wisconsin. You can find it at 5503 West Blue Mountain Road in Wauwatosa, Wisconsin. It is a beautiful 55-acre Roman Catholic cemetery. It is the oldest Roman Catholic cemetery in Milwaukee, and I think one of the oldest, like the second oldest cemetery in all of Milwaukee. Some of the famous people who are resting in peace here, I should say famous, but people who were victims to two of America's greatest tragedies in their day, rest here in Calvary Cemetery. First one being the victims of the New Hall Hotel fire that took place in 1856. That fire took place in the hotel at 4 o'clock in the morning. The New Hall Hotel was one of the most magnificent hotels in the United States. It was built by a gentleman by the name of Daniel Newhall. The fire broke out November 10th at 4 o'clock in the morning in 1956. And it started in the elevator shaft or near it. And because of the vacuum the elevator shafts can create, it sucked the fire up into all floors very quickly. The hotel was engulfed in flames in a matter of minutes. The stories of heroism that you read about is unbelievable. You literally had bystanders that had nothing to do with the fire department rushing into the hotels, risking their lives. Some of them lost their lives, I'm sure, trying to rescue people out of this hotel. The ladders the fire department had in those days were not tall enough to get to the higher floors. And as a result, there were people jumping from the top floors to their deaths. Some of them landing on bystanders on the streets, injuring or even killing people. Firefighters would make makeshift bridges using their ladders and tying them together hastily, risking their lives, putting them across two buildings, across an alley at the highest floors, and crawling or walking across them. Could have easily have fallen, the ladders could have easily gave away, but they did it anyway, and were able to save people from the top floor, as many as they could. The registry unfortunately burned in the fire. It's estimated that 90 guests were in the hotel the night of the fire. 66 people lost their lives, and many of those victims are buried here. The second one is the Lady Elgin. Lady Elgin was a luxurious side paddle boat, steamboat, that traveled Lake Michigan here. It was very luxurious. It was a preferred method of travel at the time. And that ship was commissioned and built in 1851. But in 1860, there was a really bad storm. The storms on the lake can get very violent, as bad as you would find in an ocean. I mean, Lake Michigan, parts of it are 400 feet deep. And it collided with a schooner, a sailing ship, and it breached the hull. And she sank just 10 miles off the coast of Milwaukee. 400 passengers went into the water. 300 of them lost their lives. 100 of the bodies were never found. And there is a memorial here for those victims, and some of the victims of that shipwreck are buried here at Calvary Cemetery. But that is not why we're here. We're here to visit an individual who was there, who was at the exorcism of Roland Doe. He was one of the 3 priests, and he's buried here in Calvary Cemetery. The exorcism of Roland Doe that inspired the book The Exorcist by William Blatty, that inspired the screenplay and the movie The Exorcist. And he's laying at rest here in the cemetery. Who am I talking about? I'm talking about Father Walter Holleran. Now you can find him in Section 8 or Block 8, Section A, Grave 24. And he's buried just right over there. He was present during the exorcism. His diary detailed the exorcism, along with the journal of Raymond Bishop. And it was that information that was used to create the book, The Exorcist. And so we are going to go visit the gravesite of one of the priests involved in the Roland Doe exorcism that inspired one of the most horrific, scariest, most frightening movies of all time. Here is the resting place of Walter H. Halloran, one of the 3 priests involved in the exorcism of Roland Doe. Born September 21st, 1921, died March 1st, 2005. I believe he was 83 years old when he died. Walter had a wonderful life from everything that I've read. He went on to serve in Vietnam, winning 2 Bronze Stars, or being awarded 2 Bronze Stars for his service. And after Vietnam, he went on to be a professor and taught at several different universities in the southeastern Wisconsin area. He had an impeccable reputation. He was a good man, and he served mankind well. Here we stand right next to the resting place of an incredible individual. A man who was actual witness, who was there, who documented his own words along with Raymond Bishop, his experience during the exorcism of Roland Doe. And it was that experience and his words along with Raymond Bishop that inspired the book The Exorcist, which led to the creation of one of the most terrifying movies ever created. Walter H. Halloran. He was a hero. He served his country. He was a hero to Roland Doe. And in my opinion, he's a hero to anyone who is a fan of the horror genre, a fan of The Exorcist, because this man, he lived it. Rest in peace, Walter. Thank you for your service.